Here is something that is perfect for the holiday season, a nice delicious Christmas roast. I hope you enjoyed this video as I get this put together. We're going to begin with our roast and all of our ingredients. I have celery, some sliced carrots, I have potatoes, oil, and of course we got all of our seasonings. You will see what I use as I put this recipe together. Feel free to take your time and pause in between and write down what I'm using. I have two roasts in this video because I'm going to have two different recipes going. Only the Christmas roast is going to be the featured recipe in this video, but if you want to see how I put the barbecue roast together, the pulled beef, then definitely leave a message or a comment down below. So I'm using the Better Than Bouillon for the base of this recipe for these roasts, and of course a little package of the McCormick gravy mix. This is going to be a very delicious recipe, so stay tuned as I get this all situated. And I'm using a cast iron pot or a nice Dutch oven. Now you can use whatever you have. I'm going to sear this beef first after I season it really well. I'm just using some steak seasoning and I'm going to coat it all over and make sure that every part of it is completely covered with these flavors. All the whatever steak seasoning you like to use, just go ahead and cover it all over. And I'm also going to add a little rosemary. The rosemary is going to add a very good flavor to this beef here. After it's seasoned, then I place it inside of my cast iron skillet or cast iron pot, as you see here, and I'm going to let this sear on all the sides and just kind of slowly flip it over. If you have very good tongs, you want to make sure you take your time in flipping this so that way you don't splatter any oil or grease on you. And once you sear it, then we're going to go ahead and add our vegetables. As you can see here, I have my celery and I'm just going to cut those up into 1/2-inch pieces. Now that our beef is all completely seared, I'm going to place it to the side inside of that big glass bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and add my chopped up celery here. And of course, I'm going to add my carrots. And this is going to help saute in some of those juices that came from the beef that I've already, partially cooked. And what you're going to do is just kind of saute and get that all stirred up and everything. And of course, I'm going to add onions and other flavors to this as well. And I'm going to deglaze or get some of those drippings from the bottom of the pot by using some of this seasoned vegetable base, Better Than Bouillon. I love this stuff. And then also some of the roasted beef base. And I'm going to add about a good 2 tablespoons of each into this measuring cup here, and about 2 tablespoons. I'm going to fill it up to 4 cups of water. This is a 4-cup container or pitcher, whatever you want to call it. And once that is completely full of water to the 4 cups, then we're going to go ahead and add that. As you can see, some of the vegetables have softened just a little bit, and I am going to go ahead and get the rest of that bottom parts of those bits by using the broth that we mixed, which was the vegetable and the beef. And I'm going to let that come to a boil a little bit. I'm only using half of the portion at the moment. And I'm going to stir and get all of those bottom pieces loosened up. And this is going to add so much flavor in layers, where we're going to have all the vegetables going to be well seasoned as well as the meat. So we're going to continue with this process until we get ready to add the meat into the pot. And here we go, we have added our beef to here, and now we are going to let this cook. But before we do that, I will add the rest of those juices to there that came from that bowl, as you've seen here. And we're gonna go ahead and pour the rest of that broth on there, and we're gonna let this cook. This is going to cook completely covered. I went ahead and added a little bit more water because there was some leftover drippings inside of there, and I want to make sure that we have as much water because we don't want this meat to be tough. We want this to slow cook and marinate all the way through. We want this to be good and tender, and of course we're gonna go ahead and let this cook. I brought it to a boil for about a good hour and a half and just kind of left it on number 4, which was like a medium low, and let it just cook really well. Or number 3. Yes, number 3. And I'm going to let it cook for 40 minutes. Now I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder. If you have fresh garlic, go right ahead and add that. But I didn't have any fresh garlic, so all I had was the garlic powder. And I only added about a half a teaspoon of that. And of course a little parsley to add some extra fresh, or that little, hint of color, that little green to it. This is going to be so good. Now, as you can see, I did pretty much the same seasonings with the second roast, but this time I'm going to add a little bit of the barbecue spice, hickory smoke, and I have some hickory smoked salt. This is going to give that beef, for my pulled barbecue beef, it is going to give it some really good flavor. And this is going to roast in the oven covered with aluminum foil, and that is going to also cook around the same time that I have our Christmas roast cooking. So once you get that all saturated with your seasonings and everything on all the sides, just like we did with the Christmas roast, we're going to place it inside of that square container or whatever baking dish that you have, and it is going to go into the oven covered with aluminum foil, and that is going to slow cook. I'm going to have that cook on the temperature, I believe, 425. So now that the other roast beef is in the oven, or pot roast, now I have this one. And you can see it is looking so beautiful. I went ahead and flipped it over, and I'm going to continue let this cook a little bit longer because 40 minutes is not long enough. After about a good 2.5 hours, I was able to break it a little bit with the spoon, but you can see it's still at a nice roaring boil. We want this to get a little bit softer and tender before I add my gravy seasoning pack. So this is going to stay covered, and I'm going to let that cook for about another 45 minutes to an hour. Now that our beef is tender, we are going to go ahead and add our McCormick brown gravy seasoning pack. and this is going to thicken up some of those juices there and going to help that juice become a little bit more like a gravy texture. Now if you want to, you can make a roux and add that to this, or you can go ahead and add a little bit of cornstarch to make it thicker, but I didn't want it too thick because I like to serve this over rice, as you will see later in the video. But this is so good, and I'm going to let that go ahead and simmer with the seasoning pack that I added. And this is going to let it simmer for about a good 15 or 20 minutes. It has been 15-20 minutes, and guess what? This Christmas pot roast is ready to be served up. It is delicious and tender, and you can serve this however you like. Have some cornbread on the side, or like me, I'm having rice and a little cornbread because that's just how I like it. So if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and if you stay tuned after this video, you will see how I put together that nice delicious barbecue pulled beef. It turned out so good, and if you like to see how I finish that recipe up, leave a comment down below. It's perfect to have when you want to have that little sports time of watching football, or if you just want something different after the Christmas holiday. Thank you for watching. God bless, and have a safe and happy holiday season.